Don't you think it's time for the city of Savannah to have an honest tourism management plan? That SCAD start paying its fair share? And the hospitality industry needs to increase its wages? The impacts of new growth should not cost residents. All local elected officials on council and commission should have term limits. We're working hard to accomplish these policies. We need your help. Please contribute whatever you can, $5, $10, or $20, by going to bettersavannah.org. Donate. Thank you.
The following show and broadcast is a production of Better Savannah, an independent expenditure committee dedicated to better policy outcomes at the state and local level. The views, opinions, and statements made by the hosts and/or their guests do not necessarily reflect the views of Better Savannah. Hey Chuck, hey Better Savannah viewers, it's John McMasters here in Santa Cruz, California, and I know we're doing our 50th show, and I'm sorry I can't be there, but I just want to say congratulations and thanks to everyone's hard work and efforts to make Better Savannah, a viable, important point of dialogue and influence for the city of Savannah, for politics and better public policy. Have a great show. I miss y'all. I'm coming back with a lot of great ideas, and all the best. Thanks. And another thing, I'd be remiss if I didn't point out and thank some of the people who've been our guests and our supporters on Better Savannah for the past 50 episodes. Senator Lester Jackson, former Senator Regina Thomas, all the candidates on city council currently, and many of the county commission candidates. Thanks for coming on and fielding the questions about policy and the importance of it to our community and to making Savannah better. So thanks to everyone who joined us.
I am a descendant of the Butler Island Plantation. I wrote one of the first books, the only descendant that have written a book since the weeping time. As an ancestor, my job is to stand strong, work on the conscience of the city of Savannah, Georgia, just like we worked on the conscience of the city of Darien to preserve and protect that history, which was going to be lost by legislation just 2 years ago. It was House Bills 906, if I'm not mistaken. It was going to be passed, pretty much sure 100%, and through a small miracle, that was stopped. So right now, I'm a member of a coalition. I serve on the city council. For the first time, we have it in the budget to help save the sacred grounds in Darien, Georgia. I also been in communication with the overseer. I'm dealing with his descendants now, so we're going to have a gathering. They are interested in this weeping time, even in Central Africa. Everybody wants to know about what happened here. All this history was lying dormant, and now it cannot be denied. It cannot be denied.
Amen. Amen.
I'm sure speaking for city manager, my council and all, that is one thing that this mayor and council and mayor's not going to do. We're not going to sell property like that, to make a dollar on it, because there is something more important in life than money and development, And if we get rid of like Butler Island, or they were gonna sell it, now if we do that, then it won't be able to just a couple of generations down the line, and it, like you said, it'd be non-existent. So we want to keep it alive and let everybody learn from this.
Period. So as far as I'm concerned, you know, that's it. I mean, that issue beyond that is that of the Housing Authority of Savannah and the Salvation Army. And so, you know, it's unfortunate where people will keep throwing this out there saying this was, you know, where people were sold. That is not the truth.
Good evening, folks. It's Chuck here. It's Thursday, August 19th, and it's hard to believe, but it is already episode 50 for Better Savannah. We started this project 2 years ago next month in 2019, kind of as a response to a very recalcitrant, steeped, in local money and politics, Chamber of Commerce backed city council, and really worked to level that playing field. And this project has evolved since then through the 2020 primaries and general election, and beginning at the beginning of this year. I just want to echo John's thoughts. We couldn't have done this without so many people. I want to thank John for having the courage to start something like this that could be a new voice and narrative for local politics here. I want to thank Carrie Smith for working with us earlier this year when we first started to do a regular weekly podcast show. And I want to thank all the guests and all of you viewers and people who share this information, because it does help ultimately to make a better Savannah. So again, I just want to say thank you to all of our viewers. We appreciate that you share this content. We appreciate that you share these ideas, even offline. That being said, I want to introduce our show for tonight. We're going to have a special panel show. Viewers and followers of this show this year know that there are really, a couple of main issues we've kind of, really sunk our teeth into to go hard on. And the Weeping Time Coalition is, one of those such issues. As you saw last week, we talked about the city raising taxes when they don't need to, and the city manager search before that. Those are all still issues that we'll still keep on. But this one issue, very much is defining for this city council so far to me. In a lot of ways that the fire fee, the fire tax, was very defining for the last city council. So tonight, Rebecca Rose is going to help lead this panel of all-stars. We have the legendary Dr. Leonard Small. Hey, Dr. Small, how are you tonight?
I'm great.
There's Rebecca, of course, and we are honored to be joined by the Mayor Pro Tem of Darien, Georgia, Mr. Griffin Lotson, also as a commissioner for the cultural affairs at the federal government level for Gullah Geechee Historical Corridor here in the South Carolina and Georgia areas. He's a longtime activist and elected official in the Darien, Georgia area, and is a direct descendant of the Butler Island Plantation, which is the source of the slaves that were sold at the Ten Broeck Race Course in the event that is known as the Weeping Time. Mayor Lotson, it's a pleasure to have you on. I don't know if you'll remember, we met in 2014 when I was managing Amy Tavio's congressional campaign for the first congressional district that year. And I remember you mentioning this very issue to us, and it was kind of just coming to the surface here in the Savannah area at that time. And as you've seen, as we've gotten closer and closer to the sale of this property, it's blown up locally. Thank you for joining us. How are you? How is the fight going? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I was just welcoming you to
Well,
the program.
right now
I appreciate you
it
sitting down.
has really propelled since we had. Yes, can you hear me now? I know my audio may not be good.
You're good. We can hear you loud
Okay,
and clear.
great. No, since we did okay, great. Yeah, since we have been meeting with the Savannah, Reverend Gordon, Mr. Smalls, Rebecca, and all of the others, it has mushroomed both in Savannah and Darien. Now we've got New York Times involved. Atlanta Constitution friend of mine, I made a phone call and said, "Are you interested in this weeping time? Are you interested in the Butler descendants?" She did not know a lot about the weeping times, but now she knows. I wouldn't say too much, but because of one article, now it went all over the United States. So I think it's heating up a little bit.
Amen.
Well, again, we appreciate you joining us. You know, the mayor of Savannah and the mayor of Darien, as we saw and heard in the introduction video, have really different outlooks on historic preservation around this particular event that connects Butler Island, just outside of Darien, there where you are, and the Ten Broeck Race Course property here in Savannah. You know, where does this fight go to next?
Wow. I guess because of my age and being in politics and doing humanitarian work for decades, I can speak truth to matter. 2.5 years ago, we were in the same boat as Savannah. Truthfully, I was mayor pro tem. I decided to take a chance to run for mayor, and I lost by 72 votes. But I had a plan B to be back on city council. 2.5 years ago, we were going to sell the Butler Plantation for $1. I am grateful that the mayor and council has did a 180 degree. And we can only hope that something like this will happen for Savannah. Now, that's a bold statement from me because I'm doing all I can to preserve Butler Island, and I don't want to ruffle the feathers of the people that's in power. But I say that to encourage Savannah. 2.5 years ago, the mayor of Savannah and the mayor of Darien had the same thought, two different matters. My dear friend in Savannah, I knew him for many of years, a little quagmire. Salvation Army the ink was almost dry. So it's difficult for him to change. But the people put us elected officials in office every time. So we have to be mindful of that.
Dr. Small, you recently coordinated and executed a 10-day action outside of the Salvation Army's Montgomery Street location, which a lot of us feel that Savannah College of Art and Design has been eyeing since they built those monstrosity multi-million-dollar student living facilities directly across the street at Victory and Montgomery Corner. You know, why do you think that this did not get a lot of media coverage? You know, do we need to march on WTOC and WSAV next?
Well, here's the thing. As you know, Chuck, and you've been knowing me a minute and watching some of the things I've been doing, people have always had a tendency who were inside the loop in rooms where I might not be to tell me what was going on behind those doors. And decisions were made, I know, at the newspaper. The discussion was that they were giving us too much coverage. We did have a reporter from WSAV come and interview me directly in front of the Salvation Army. They never put one word. And I don't understand how you could have a picket in front of a local circumstance for 9 days and it not be on the news, except it be propaganda type behavior by the newspapers. I'm a radio journalist. I own 3 radio stations, so I know what news is. I've been covering items and mostly sports since I was in the business, and we're talking 30 years. And so it is by design that we are not being covered. Nevertheless, we will prevail. And people like Pastor Lotson, Mayor Pro Tem Lotson, give me so much information and so much encouragement. And to see a mayor named Bubba and a city manager just as white and rural as they can be, stand up and declare in no uncertain terms, knowing that the kickback could come from them taking a stance. I look for him to answer that question. I did not look for a mayor called Bubba, and he and I gave each other little fist bumps and stuff, and I would have hugged him. I really would have, and he would have let me. And he didn't play politics. He just flat out said what the real reality was. He said that if this land was not preserved, that in a couple of generations it will be gone. He was actually repeating something we had said a few minutes before, and when he was talking, he was looking directly at me. And I want people to understand something. You can have a kindred spirit that from either, like that whole gathering was about the slaves, the former slave or formerly enslaved children, and the former people who were over those slaves can come together 160 years later. They can shake hands. They can find common ground. But at the same time, how can it be that we were able to do that in Darien and have that man speak so eloquently about the saving of a historic circumstance, and we are here all black and proud, supposedly, and struggling through this storm. But we will prevail. Make no doubt about it. We will prevail. I'm that guy. If I tell you a puppy can pull a freight train, hook him up.
I'm with you there, for sure. So in Savannah, the council vote was 5-4 for putting the shelter on the Weeping Time site, which they say is not the Weeping Time site, but you can't, ephemeral event, like it's not, you can't say it's not, because it's part of it. So it was 5-4 vote, and the district representation, the 2 at-large representatives, and the representative for the district where the current shelter is, all opposed the shelter placement for very valid reasons. Now, how would your council work if that were the case in a district of your town? Would it just get railroaded through on any other issue, even aside from this? Can I ask you that?
I think she was asking you, Dr. Lotson.
Yeah, like as a council person.
Okay.
Does that happen? Can that happen?
Of course, it can happen. Each city has awesome power. Fortunately or unfortunately, it has more power than the governor. It has more power than the Supreme Court in the beginning. It can make laws. It can change laws on the drop of a dime. It can raise your taxes 400%. As I often say that on the back end, of course, usually those same individuals, if they do something so drastic, they get vote out of office. So let's make it plain. They do have a lot of power. That's why it's very important for citizens to know they have awesome power in the vote, and for each elected official to know who put them in office. Keep in mind, 3 years ago, Darien was going to sell Butler Island for $1.
Come on.
But the citizen groups came together and forced and changed the minds of the elected officials. Our elected officials have a 50-year lease, 50 years. But right now, our coalition is on the property more than the state and the city. I have a copy of the key to the building that was there since the book Gone with the Wind was written.
Wow.
Okay, so you can change things, but they do have awesome power. It's going to take the citizens exactly what you're doing right now.
And they were going to develop a distillery as a tourist attraction. Is that right, Mayor Lotson?
Yes, that is correct. Now, it did have a caveat in the beginning. In the beginning, the distillery was going to be the cash cow. Cash cow, of course, we know it produced the milk, and you can sell the milk to make money for the city to run. So it wasn't an evil, corrupt thing. And they added in there, well, we're going to have a part of it to showcase the Gullah Geechee history and the history of the Butler Island. Then it changed dramatically after all of, they blocked me out of the meetings. I was in some of the meetings, and the next thing I knew, everything was hid from me. And then it went from not just having it for the historical purposes. We were going to have one room in the building that was built in 1927 by they call him Colonel, part owner of the New York Yankees, like Babe Ruth and all came through there. Most people don't know George Washington came through the Savannah area and Butler Island and Hampton Plantation also. Most people don't know that, so it's a lot of history. So yes, I said it long, but yes, they were going to sell it for $1. House Bill 906, if it had passed, would have been terrible times for us in Darien in trying to preserve the history.
Praise God. That's it.
Where did that dollar price tag come? What was the trade-off that Darien would get for that?
Yes, as most small cities, keep in mind the city of Darien was established near the same time Savannah was established. As I've said in the international conference that we had in Darien, to be honest with you, I did not know we had international media there until after it was over with. Then I found out that more people came than what we imagined. Now back to what you were saying. The dollar came from, if they could do this distillery, it was going to create jobs. They were going to plant crops in there, like sugarcane that produces and used for distilleries. And they were going to help out with like a welcome center / visitor center. And the city budget in Darien is only $3 million a year. In Savannah, I think it's well over $300 million.
Exactly.
So you have a very small, could not develop the Butler Island. So it's like, well, if you're going to do all that, we're going to make it easy for you to purchase those acreage and then do what you do to help our little town. That's why it was for $1.
Right.
Amen.
And they donated over $300,000 to the preservation after that deal was stopped. The city on a $3 million budget.
What we did, the $850 came from the exact amount of money that Pierce Butler sold the enslaved from. So those figures came from yours truly, Griffin Lotson, getting creative. So we use those figures so symbolically if we can raise that kind of money. Now we have a line item budget, and through the splash tax and other funds that we can lock into, we to raise that 300,000. Plus, we're going after other funding sources. Right now, we have a grant application that we're trying to get with the Reynolds Foundation. My nonprofit had received over $300,000 from them in the past. So we're trying to put more life in it. And R.J. Reynolds had owned the Butler Island property at one time. So we have other funding sources that we have to find matching funds for. So yes, we are moving quickly and as fast as we can to get more funding. And there's others that I can tell you after the teleconference, they want to partner and see what they can do to help us save the Butler Island. Even elected officials nationally, and we'll talk more about that later. It's a possibility.
Well, that's great. I mean, what do we stand to lose when we disregard sites like this or ignore the history and the impact? What in today, given the climate, the political climate we're in right now, very tense and very divided, what do we stand to lose and what do we stand to gain by making these moves? Do you, in your mind?
Well, let me try to answer that. Okay, well, let me start off. New York City spends millions of dollars for a burial site, and they do not know one person that's buried there. Not one. Here in Savannah, Georgia, and in Darien, Georgia, not only do we know how many people were sold, not only do we know how much money was raised, we have names and ages and even what their crafts were. If it was a baby, it is named a baby and how many weeks a month it was. And guess what? We can't even save any parts of the Ten Broeck plate. It is truly amazing that we can't have $1 in the Savannah budget to save anything. But in New York, they don't have one name of who was buried on that land in New York, but millions of dollars are being raised, and tourism is off the roof. So we are losing a lot of history, number one, and we can gain a lot of world attention and save a culture and history that's been long since lost. And this is a generation that's waking up the sleeping giant. Keep in mind, this is the generation. It was dormant for almost 160 years. I've never seen it this alive before, ever. Okay, at least in the last 30 years, I've been working with things like this. I've never seen this much attention given to Savannah and the racetrack.
Amen.
And what about you, Reverend Small?
Well, here's the thing. To cut to the chase, I want to make sure everyone who's listening understands that when our mayor speaks, you really can't go by what he says. The clip that Chuck played earlier with the mayor saying it's not our property, it belongs to HUD, or the Housing Authority of Savannah. First of all, the Housing Authority of Savannah is Savannah. The suit that we're going to file momentarily basically also outlines the fact that a quasi-governmental entity like the Housing Authority is actually, it belongs to the city. It doesn't, and so he's being duplicitous. And to prove that, I got a letter from HUD, and I'm going to read it verbatim for people to know what the truth is. Reverend Dr. Smalls, they put an S on my name, it's not officially there, but Reverend Dr. Smalls, thank you for informing HUD Region 4 about the Salvation Army's plan for a new transitional housing homeless shelter and the ongoing issues surrounding the proposed site. Based on a thorough review by 2 HUD program officers and an associated legal review, we have concluded that HUD does not have a role, and that is a local matter between the Salvation Army and the city. Now listen, she didn't say the Salvation Army and the Savannah Housing Authority. She didn't say that, the Housing Authority rather of Savannah. She didn't say it was between Salvation Army and the Housing Authority of Savannah. Their legal people's opinion was it was between Salvation Army and the city of Savannah, because the property was quit claim to the Housing Authority, which represents the city. And there's no two ways about it. And at law, if you go against the Housing Authority in this action, you also have to include the mayor and all the persons when you bring your cause of action. And what the mayor does is he plays these little duplicitous games. Well, this is not our property, it belongs to HUD. HUD says it's not their property. HUD says flat out, no doubt about it, no loopholes in it. The property belongs to the city of Savannah. Now, having said that, the other thing people need to know is the property. I have the maps. I have the latest right here. I have the latest survey of the property right here. And I'm telling you, the property that they didn't when we were talking back and forth with Salvation Army, they were duplicitous. They never told us they'd already purchased it. While we were talking to them about the reasonability and feasibility of it, they purchased it back in May. Now it's on them if they can't build on it, because they did not wait until the city came back with its conclusion. But these are facts. These documents here, this survey is facts. And the fact is that the property that they acquired is 60 feet. Count it, 60 feet from the property of the Weeping Time sale. 60 feet. Now, I'm not guessing. I'm not. This is not conjecture. I don't do what the mayor does. I work a fact.
Reverend Smalls, you have both in council chambers and in the community eloquently compared this site to historic cultural heritage sites around the Holocaust. I'm somebody who's a descendant of ethnic Jews. I'm not religiously Jewish, but I'm a descendant of that culture and that ethnicity. And I think one of the ways I've heard it compared, because I agree that the grandstand where these slaves were sold was probably not on this property that was purchased by the Salvation Army, but certainly it was used to walk those human beings to be sold. Certainly they were sleeping on that property the nights before they were sold after they came up from Butler Island. It's like the trains going to Dachau, in Auschwitz. It's like saying that the train station next door to the concentration camp is not a part of that historical event, when in fact it very much is relevant. Am I missing something there?
Well, here's the thing, and Dr. Ann Bailey, who along with Dr. Pastor Lotson have brought it home to the house in terms of the importance of it. And Pastor Lotson alluded, and I know he got a bunch of terms. Sometimes I call him Pastor, sometimes I call him Mayor Pro Tem, but whatever. But here's the thing. He alluded the other day to the fact that these are parts of one story. These are two parts of one story. And that if we preserve it properly, there will be a historic corridor that runs from Savannah to Butler Island telling this story. Now, you wouldn't wipe out half of the story and Chuck's allusion to the train station, which is preserved, not just the concentration camp, the train station where they were disembarked to go into the concentration camp. That's also preserved. And alluding to the idea of the things I've said, you would not build a Salvation Army, even though it's a good cause, but they could build that. We pointed out 10 other places reasonably, easily, that they could build it in Savannah, easily. So here's the thing. You would not build it at ground zero. No matter how good a work it is, you would not build it at Arlington National Cemetery. You would not build it at Pearl Harbor or at Gettysburg. You wouldn't build it there. And you shouldn't build it here at the Weeping Time. And the argument being that the grandstand was on another piece of the property, we have proof from written articles of the period that the Jockey Club, because it was a racetrack, would use that Augusta Avenue entrance to get there. And if you came to buy slaves and you're going to buy 400, you're going to sell 429 slaves, well, 436. They sold 429. 436 were offered. If you're going to sell that many, then you're going to have buggies, you're going to have wagons, you're going to have carriages, you're going to have handlers, you're going to have chains, you're going to have whips, you're going to have all the accoutrements it takes to buy the people and then walk the people, because they weren't going to be catching Greyhound buses leaving there. They were not going to be catching planes from here to New Orleans. These people were being walked in caravans. And so it was the land that they're building on was right in front of the area in front of the grandstand where people were sold. It would have been a parking lot. It would have been like any other Super Bowl event where the people are out there cooking and laughing and joking, because this was a festival. This wasn't simply a sale. It was horrible, but at the same time, this was one of those celebratory processes that took place during this man's inhumanity to man. And yes, it is a sacred place in American history. And if this is allowed to go through, it will be lost.
Right. And what message do you think it sends people that this is okay, that all of the voices that have been up in opposition for very valid reasons that span the spectrum, but they're all valid because there's so many reasons why this doesn't make sense? What does it say about how the investment interests in this city feel about the citizens of this city? That
maybe Dr. Lotson, because he's more politician than I am.
Right.
What does this say about our city government?
But yeah, I mean,
Well, yes, let me just say a little bit about that. Yeah, I'll say a little bit about that. I personally reached out to the governor's office to try to get the governor involved. With things of this matter, you have to move beyond politics. So in my line of work, I worked a lot in the philanthropic world, wherein I worked for President George W. Bush. Year was 2003. He needed someone that knew how to deal with government grants and funding, and not just me, but many others across the United States. That's on the Republican side. On the Better Hometown, I worked with President Jimmy Carter. Both of these individuals are close up And the reason why I say that, you have to move beyond politics. If we're going to move in Savannah, and if we're going to move in Darien, it's all hands on deck. Everybody needs to know what's going on so they can either get involved or stay away or help out behind the scene or in front of the scene. You have to do it all. In Savannah, keep in mind, and shamefully, and I've said this to other groups because I wanted to resonate, shamefully, 20 years ago, not any of us that's on this telecast now over the internet, maybe some that's viewing us beyond that's on the screen, but including me, 20 years ago, I was not a champion. 30 years ago, I was not a champion. 40 years ago, I was not a champion. And I lived in McIntosh County from 1954 up until now. So do the math. Nobody had a banner out there trying to save Butler Island. Unfortunately, nobody had a banner in Savannah trying to save Butler Island. Something unique happened in 2008 or 2009. I filmed the entire episode when Mayor Floyd was out there and Otis Johnson. I was with him on Friday evening when the 1619 film crew was in McIntosh County. And I told you all I had to go to that, not knowing that they were at the weeping time. And I say that because hopefully they'll give some courage and coverage on the weeping time. I tell everybody, Henry Louis Gates, and I'm not just off the subject, I'm trying to paint a picture. He is the greatest in America with the ancestry. Did not know anything about the weeping time 5 years ago. Fascinating. So what I'm saying with these elected officials and the Reverend Smalls and Rebecca and everybody that's on this call, if we can keep our foot to the pedal, I believe that these elected officials are going to change and the citizens are going to change. And I follow the internet. I see what you guys doing in Savannah. I did not see this as close as 5 years ago. So I think it's going to change the minds of the people, but we have to stay strong. I get paid absolutely nothing for doing this work, but it's a work that's greater than myself. It's a part of my legacy. It's a part of my ancestors. So if we keep ourselves to the plow, I believe we are going to bring it and put shame on all of our elected officials. Keep in mind, I'm saying this is going to get in trouble. 3 years ago, it was a different story, even in Darien, Georgia. I'm just admitting it. Times have changed. Okay, a mayor named Bubba was there 3 years ago, and is there now. So what I'm saying is that some changes can happen. You guys know Van Johnson. I've been knowing him for about 25 years, if not more. I know long as he's been on council almost, I've been knowing him, okay? He speaks well of me. I can't quite throw him under the bus. He is in a quagmire. But I think at night, he is changing when he lays down at night with this, with the weeping time in Savannah. And hopefully under his term or the next mayor's term, okay? I guarantee you whoever's running for political office is not going to fight the weeping time that much at all. I can guarantee you that. I'm an old politician. Trust me. So you're already changing history, and I see Chuck nodding his head. So I'll stop there because
I appreciate it. We're not going to get you in trouble throwing anyone under the bus. That we'll do that for you. But I just want to play another clip of our mayor, and I may just play a clip right after it, just again, so everybody sees the contrast in the language. All right, so I pulled these Mayor Van Johnson quotes are from the Savannah Morning News Commute podcast. It's on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You can get it on Spotify and all that stuff, just like you get ours. But let me play this clip real quick.
Period. So as far as I'm concerned, that's it. I mean, that issue beyond that is that of the Housing Authority of Savannah and the Salvation Army. And so, it's unfortunate where people will keep throwing this out there saying this was, where people were sold. That is not the truth. I wasn't there, and no one around here was there, but we have professionals that have indicated that conclusively. And again, very thorough report, and it certainly answered all of my questions. So, the fact that, people want to continue to make that an issue, they can continue making it an issue. As for me, we have people here that are crying. We have to take care of them.
I'm struck by that last line. And I first heard it from Alderman Palumbo maybe a month or two ago.
Wow.
Basically
Okay.
along the lines of,
Well, let me ask a question. Let me ask a question.
Please.
He has a valid point. There's people that's walking the streets, people transitional housing. I have done transitional housing. Through my nonprofit, we have built 2 multi-million-dollar development, one in Darien, Georgia, which some of you all saw when you turned down. We own that 100%. Ludowici, we built another one. People needing housing. I don't see the evil in that, but trust me, I'm fully aware, because we built a mall on my ancestors in Darien, Georgia, that everybody came to, and they said even Whitney Houston used to drive to. It was the mall to come to in Darien, and they moved bodies, ancestors' bodies, where cemetery was. Wow, that's sacred ground. But economical dollars does change people's mind. I understand the economical dollars even of the Salvation Army. So the location, I must admit that maybe they could build it someplace else. That's an easy thing. And I also found out that they got the land like almost for free. So I'm going an off question, but what he's saying about helping people that are alive, what's so evil about that?
I just want to, and Dr. Small, I want you to respond to this as well, because I think there's always this effort to pigeonhole our position, so to speak, into a binary choice. Either we preserve the land or we help the homeless and needy, right? It's not a bifurcated. We can have two things going on. I think the phrase is walking through bubble gum, right? Okay, we could do both of these things. None of us innately have a problem with the Salvation Army as an idea or as an organization. Now, locally, some of the people involved, I question some of the motives, but that's just here in Savannah. That has no bearing on Salvation Army's mission worldwide, right? I guess where I'm going here, Pastor Smalls, is why are we even debating these issues on their grounds? We should just really, I said a long time ago on our show, you should just really explain. We should be asking them why they are against preserving the cultural heritage of a majority in this city that, if you look at the census numbers the other day, is waning. Right. We have lost almost 5% Black population on the census numbers in the last decade. When John said on our show a few weeks ago that this might be a white city in a decade, people jumped on us. But when you look at those numbers, he's not far off.
No, he's not lying. But let me do something, because a lot of times people suffer for a lack of education. Okay, so my role with the coalition is to make sure we have proper information. And we did go over to the Salvation Army site on B Road. They have enough land, they admit, to put it there, but then they lied and said it used to be a landfill. Well, it was never a landfill, because I was a lifeguard, the first Black lifeguard at the pool across the street. And we used to ride horses on the land 50 years ago through the trees. So it's not been a landfill. I know personally in the last 70, 80 years, because there was virgin forest there. So that having been said, but listen to the response of the new city manager when he receives a letter, and this is what he says. As you may recall, Brockett and Associates prepared the archaeological assessment for 2305 Augusta Avenue. The city sent the assessment to the Georgia Office of the State Archaeologist, and he uses the term CSA. It's not at CSA, it's at the Department of Natural Resources. He said he sent to the State Archaeologist, CSA, to review the work of Brockington. OSA, which means the Architectural Office, confirmed that the architectural field work and report preparation methods meet those set forth in the Georgia Standards and Guidelines for Archaeological Surveys. What the lady who wrote us at the Weeping Time said was they do not assess whether or not it's a historic piece of property. All they assess is whether or not the way they did the archaeological research was sound under standards. But historically, or as terms of archival value, their office doesn't assess that. Now listen to what he says. The condition of the conditional special use permit has been satisfied. This is what the city manager wrote. At this juncture, no additional action is to be taken by the city. A copy of the OSA and Brockington's assessment are attached. Now listen to this. The difficulty is it never went to the preservation board. It only went to the architectural. The previous city manager said it was going to go to the Department of Community Affairs, which is where the preservationists are. I went to that department. They never got the report. It only went to the Department of Natural Resources. So no preservationist has ruled up or down on this at all. Ever, never, never. I'm in contact with the people in the office. They never reviewed this report. So the fact that they're saying it went to the preservationist board and it was approved that this was the property, it's disingenuous. The letter from Parks and Services, the letter came from the Department of Natural Resources. This is not the Department of Community Affairs, which should have reviewed this report. It is disingenuous to say that someone ruled that this was or was not the property because the people who it went to don't even opine on that matter. And the lady that did that approval wrote the city of Savannah a letter when she finished this. And in her letter, she admonished the city of Savannah that she'd received information from the Weeping Time Coalition. And these are the words she said in a letter to me and also in the letter to them, that she strongly encouraged the city of Savannah to work with the Weeping Time Coalition to solve these issues. That's the letter they got. Now, the response they gave is disingenuous. They were advised by the lady who wrote them back, who did their review, to work with the Weeping Time Coalition. It is in their documentation, and they're acting like it isn't. I rest my case again.
I want to. So I mean, we see the basis for why this should be undone in court. You know, whether it's the illegal appointment of board members to the Housing Authority of Savannah from Mayor Van Johnson, whether it's the lack of the report being certified by preservationists from the state. You know, there are myriad reasons to stop it. But, you know, Pat, I want to just, I shout out Pat Gunn. You know, we all know Sister Pat. You know, yes, we know that Griffin is not the only person that preserved Butler Island, but you put up here that we want to hear solutions. All right. So beyond stopping the current development as planned by the Salvation Army, we all know that that's the first fight right now. So that's legally, that's court of public opinion. There's lots of ways to stop this from actually breaking ground and being built. Beyond that, right, I think there's a couple of issues. We need a governing authority that's going to use eminent domain to take the Bradley plywood property, which is not a part of this sale to the Salvation Army. I have that correct, right? Okay, so that's a separate parcel of land where the race course, the remains of the race course that are available are. We have to secure that property.
True.
Right? We have to secure the vast majority of this property, right? Yes. And we need to put in motion to create like a state park or state type of preservation, thing, right? Go ahead, Rebecca.
Yes. Okay, well, here's the deal. When you find a place like this, whenever you find a site like this, the first thing you want to think about is preserving it and preserving its history, and to make it a place of reflection and contemplation where people can come from all over the world and not only see the tragedy that happened, but see the hope in the people that preserved it. The Dachau, Auschwitz, or any of those, they're not preserved so that we can stick our finger in the eyes of the people who committed.
Rebecca, both of them are talking and it's hard to hear. Both of them are talking.
Oh, it is almost impossible, if you are able to save this, to not also use it as a mechanism for reconciling with the people, just like Pastor Lotson has done. Get the people who are descendants of those who did this, and get the people who suffer from it being done, and let us come together and show the world. Just like, I was elated to be in Darien with the former overseer's family and the former descendants of this atrocity of slavery family, sitting next to each other in brotherly love and friendship. And it wasn't about retribution. It wasn't about pointing fingers. It was about, let's not ever do this again. That's what we want to set up a memorial park and maybe garden, because the land is beautiful for it. It's got trees that were there from that time. And it could be a place of contemplation, reflection, and instruction. And people will come from all over the world, because when we were in front of City Hall, everybody who asked us about the weeping time, the next statement was, where is it? Because they were going to go see it. And if we can do in Savannah, and we will, we've got 27 months left of this repressive regime. 27 months. And I'm telling you, we're gonna tell a lot of them, see you later, bye.
Well, we're gonna play that clip again, courtesy. Thank you, Pat Longstreth, for making such amazing video production and putting it out there for us to be able to use and comment under. But I want to pull up these images from. This is from the West Side Community Survey. Rebecca, where's this from?
Yeah, that's the community plan. These are the wants from the community from 2005. From the
so this is
Savannah
before the weeping time even was known about.
2005. So these are all the things that the community wanted. And the ones that they are facing this or going ahead with this shelter proposal, like, you can't do just one of these things without bolstering it with several other to make it a positive for the community. What picking just these things are makes it completely predatory. Like, what do we have here? My eyes are shot. Can somebody read all of these? Can anybody read
so
those
what
out
we've got, yeah. So, we've got, community response on different areas core to the community. Housing, as always, has been number one for about 20 years. A retail, a grocery store, and a drugstore has been a primary issue in that community for the same amount of time. What she has highlighted here is a drug alcohol treatment center, transitional center.
This is
these things were lower on the list.
And
Go ahead, Rebecca.
and there's one from the youth, from the kids. And that one, like, man, it got me. Because kids, they're compassionate by nature. And of course, yes, they want a shelter because they don't want to see people on the streets. But there's so much more that is needed. And where have we seen any municipal investment in Black communities in Savannah for not as long as I've been here?
Well, I've been in Savannah all my life, which is coming up on 3/4 of a century, and West Savannah has been neglected my entire life. And Van Johnson, for 16 years before he became the mayor, was the district representative, and he neglected West Savannah. And at this juncture, what he's about to do to it, if we actually put something there that will draw people from around the world, that will draw tourists through that area, that by itself would generate finance, work, and value.
Mm-hmm.
We have a vision, but without this particular place, like Ann Bailey said, the Salvation Army can build anywhere on earth and be the Salvation Army. But there's only one place on the planet that can genuinely be called the Weeping Time property. The strange thing is, and I want people to catch this, the Weeping Time monument is 2 or 3 blocks away from where it should have been placed when it was placed. Van Johnson was the district representative then, and he actually opposed even that. Now, the city of Savannah owned, through the housing authority, that land, and it could have been used to place that monument on. So maybe somebody had a vision from a long time ago how they were going to take it. But Edna Jackson wouldn't take it. Eddie DeLoach wouldn't take it. But Mayor Johnson, he's willing to take it. And therefore, we need to understand that he does not care about this situation. And his statement that this is not the property of the Weeping Time is completely false on its face.
One of my favorite authors, Thomas Frank, wrote a book called "It Takes a Liberal," to do things that conservatives actually want to get done. And it's just kind of a play on exactly what you're thinking there. I want to go back to what Pat was asking for, a solution. Okay. I want to take everybody back to earlier this year. It seems like forever ago, but remember when we were debating expanding the hotel motel tax to promote African-American tourism? Does everybody remember that on this call? Dr. Small and Rebecca?
Yep.
Commissioner Lotson, Mayor Pro Tem Lotson, you guys may have this in Darien as well, but we collect 6% currently for hotel motel tax, and we were looking at expanding it to 8%. And when they were selling it because they were going to hire at the Chamber of Commerce, who executes that contract for us. They were going to hire one Black person to advise on African-American tourism. Okay. So I in terms of a policy solution, all right, let me pull up this article on the share, just so everybody's got an idea of what I'm talking about. So again, this is earlier this year. We had a vote in city council to do it. And then a coalition of people, including Better Savannah, including the Chatham County Republican Women's Group, including every hotel owner, not downtown, because remember, hotels on 95 in the city got to pay it too, but They ain't getting no benefit from it, so they don't want to raise their prices, right? So we had this coalition that defeated this at the legislature this year during the session. And I'm going to just want to, scroll down on this little reading series here, and I just want to go to the very end where they quote the mayor, okay? At the end, trying again. Under the proposed 8% tax, 37.5% would have gone to the city's general fund, 33.8% to Visit Savannah, and 14% to the Savannah Convention Center. The remaining 14.7% will go towards tourism product development, which is defined by the state. Those tourism development funds have been designated for redevelopment of the waterfront, expansion of the tie-to-town urban trail network, renovation of the historic waterworks building, trails, sidewalks, and other connections between the historic district, west side neighborhoods, and the new arena. Museum development, a new water access facility in the 6th district, wayfinding. It's basically a giveaway to get a bunch of votes is what this looks like to me. Yeah. Really no one is in position to pay for the many things that everyone says we want or need. This was an opportunity for us to derive some benefit from money that our citizens were not going to pay for. We'll just try again in January. Stevens said the delegation will look at taking up the bill early in the session next year. Since it's a local bill, it can be taken up anytime. I'm going to stick this into the chat. I want to just lay out this proposal, okay? There were a lot of reasons not to do the hotel motel expansion this past year. We really didn't know where the tourism industry was going to be for the year at the beginning of the year coming into this year. But the reason to defeat it next year is this sweeping time issue. Okay. Why are we looking to spend $20 million? It's $20 million they want to spend on River Street from this fund. $20 million.
Additional.
Okay. Additional. That's after, John McMasters loves to talk about this. And I got to bring this up because if he were here, he would bring this up. In 2008, at the depths of the recession, Mayor Otis Johnson convinced the board members of the Westside Health Clinic, which was located at York Street, downtown, across from Soonsies, off of Drayton. The city appointed all of those board members, Reverend Small. Sound familiar? Like Housing Authority of Savannah, right? The mayor, Otis Johnson, convinced that board to sell that property to an investor from Atlanta, okay? This investor sat on that property for the legally required 12 months and a day to pay long-term capital gains. I know Pastor Smalls knows what we're talking about here, right? And all of a sudden, as soon as that 12 months and a day hit, here comes Paula Wallace and Savannah College of Art and Design, and they buy the building, okay? Now, what did Mayor Otis Johnson get for convincing that board to sell that property? When you hear what I'm about to tell you, your jaws are going to drop. He got Eric Johnson to push $8.9 million for a Riverwalk expansion to the Marriott. Okay? So, I just don't understand how we're trading the farm for a night out on the town. I don't want to, I'm Pastor Small. I don't want to get in trouble here. I'll say some bad things if I keep going. But I think we should hold the line on this hotel motel tax until the Weeping Time has the majority of the share of money set aside for it, because when I see the type of money they're talking about, that's enough money to fairly buy this property from the Bradley family, right, at fair market value through eminent domain. It's enough money to buy this property back from the Salvation Army. It's enough money to build out a main museum building to start, enough to staff some of that for the first year. I'm seeing $7 to $9 million in the first year from this extra 2%. Do you think that that's what we should do as the plan, Pastor Small?
Let me make Pastor Lotson like me more, if that's possible, because he doesn't always have the kind of help I am when he's trying to do things in Darien. But listen to me very carefully. As soon as the next city council is in place, connected with the present county commission, they will have the SPLOS items on the table immediately. Immediately. A nickel and dime item from the SPLOS will buy all of the land. Bradley, everything, all of it. Okay? What most people don't realize is about 3 or 4 years ago, the land that we're talking about, the Weeping Time property on Augusta Avenue, that Salvation Army has purchased for $500,000. watch this, was valued, according to the county, at 1.4 million. So how all of a sudden did it lose 60% of its value in this economy? Not just any economy, in this economy when everything is rising. People are playing footsie with us. But the mere fact that we have SPLOST coming says how are we going to pay for it. The hotel motel tax says how are we going to pay for it. How are we going to acquire it to secure it for posterity? And like Bubba Hodge says, this thing has more value than money. This has more value than any other type of development in and around Savannah. And in a couple of generations, that will be lost if we do not secure this for posterity now. The plan is, it's an easy do, but you got to stop this in order to do that.
Can I make one comment there?
Please. Unmute yourself, Doc.
You're on mute.
I'm unmuted now.
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can you hear me? Okay. Yeah, I was in a class with your Alderwoman, Keisha Carter, I believe, and it was dealing with exactly what we're talking about. And the instructor was in Darien with our authorities about a month ago. And I said, well, that's the same instructor from the university. And they were talking about there's a new law which was passed. And check with your counsel, Alderwoman Carter, and she might can tell you about it, that a new revenue tap-in funding dealing exactly with the taxation from the hotel motel, that the local city can do the local legislation first and then forward it up to the state. It doesn't get up to the state automatic. It has to deal with the local, and there's an additional 5%. So what we are doing is, and because, you know, you sometimes have to stroke the egos of your elected officials, and sometimes you have to give them the credit, okay? The techniques you guys are using now is a solution. As I said, including me, shamefully, but it is, you only get in office if the most people vote for you. It's as simple as that, no rocket science to it. And of course, you have to do what the people want you to do. And if you don't do what they want you to do, well, they vote you out. So that's simple. All politicians understand that math. So it's something new. Ms. Carter might be able to tell you all about those new funding that you can get the majority vote on, that you can set aside this money for us, because we're showing the bigger picture. As the mayor said, it's not just all about money. And now we are earmarking certain funds coming in to the Butler Plantation salvation now, to pump some life back into it. So I think Savannah might can do the same thing with this administration. And the best time to get any politician to do anything, and listen to this old politician here, is the year of their election. They agree to almost anything, okay? I need to get paid for that one, but that's a true statement, okay? I'll stop there.
Oh, man, that's so great. That's great.
You know, the one thing about it, us old preachers, we've got so much dirt under our feet from running down so many rocky roads that a lot of times people would ask the question, well, Pastor, don't you get weary? Don't you get tired? And yes, we do. We get both weary and tired. But what motivates us? What keeps us going? And when we, both of us are reasonably well off, we could just go on vacation and don't come back. we could actually stop doing this easily. I know I can, and he probably can 3 times. So my point being, so why are we doing this? I'm doing it because a few months ago, maybe 3 years ago, I was walking up and down in front of City Hall after they passed the fire tax. And I looked up, saw my son-in-law and 2 of my grandchildren coming. I had marched up and down a few blocks down that street when I was 10 years old in front of Bargain Corner. And I looked up and saw my grandchildren coming, holding up signs, putting signs on their front and back like I did back then. And I was kind of hurt because I thought, you know, when I was doing it back then, we could do it once and for all. And here I was 60 years later, still doing the same thing because of foolishness of greedy politicians who didn't care about people. And while I was really hurt by it, I was also encouraged because what I learned from Hosea Williams and Ben Clark, Esther Garrison, Macon C. Chisholm, W.W. Law, was life is about more than you. And what you do should last if you do what's right. If you really love the life God gave you, then you'll love the people he made. And you'll hope that your living will make someone else's living less hurtful, less harmful, less desperate. That's what this is about. It's not about white or black. It's not about blue or green. It's about right and wrong. It's about giving our children the opportunity to learn to be better in the future than we have been in the past. It's really that simple. That's why we're doing this. That's why Better Savannah exists. Hello, neighbor. Black Voters Matter.
ATR.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Butler Plantation Coalition. That's why we exist.
You know, I got this tattoo. I got this tattoo a long time ago. You know, it was about 15 years ago, and I don't like to harp on other politicians' fraternities, you know, because I know they take it so personally. But you know, my fraternity, Iota Phi Theta, is the last historically organized, historically black fraternity. It was organized 2 weeks after the MLK "I Have a Dream" speech. And it was organized in reaction as a conduit on campus to be able to coordinate sit-ins and actions and demonstrations. You know, the founders of the fraternity had all just come back from Vietnam. They were all older than traditionally college-age students. And so, you know, just I want to play 2 clips, and then I want to have Mayor Pro Tem Lotson kind of respond and close this out, because I know that you guys are very busy and you guys have a lot going on. So I want to respect everybody's time. But when Martin Luther King Jr., you know, spoke, you know, these words I'm going to play, I mean, this is the type of thing that they were thinking about, was using the cultural, educational heritage to heal this nation. You know, again, as somebody of ethnic Jewish descent, I know that this has worked. It's worked in Germany. It's worked in Austria. It's worked in Hungary. It worked in Rwanda. You know, it can work here in America if we all work on it. So let me just briefly play this clip and then play this video from, again, Pat. I want to just say thank you again, Pat, for all that you do for us. Okay.
Sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners, will they be able to sit down together at the table of brotherhood? I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice.
So, you know, again, we know that speech. I won't listen to it, so we won't. I can't play more than a few seconds, or we'll get copyright violation. Because even though it's a very historical speech, you know, YouTube and Facebook have funny things. But this video, shared with permission, is from last week in Darien, a meeting of descendants from the overseers and the slaves from Butler Island, which, again, to recap everybody, this is the source of the slaves that were sold at the Ten Broeck Race Course, known as the Weeping Time here in Savannah, that we've been fighting the special use permit on. Here's this video.
Descendants from the enslaved and slave owner there on Butler Island. For the first time, these two families are talking a dialogue. This has never happened in over 200 years.
Yes.
Amen. Jesus Christ, this is powerful.
It is.
What we're doing for America and the world.
We are all part of the same fabric of history, and we just really want to get the story out there. The question I got yesterday is, why are more people not willing to talk about this? I don't know why. It's cultural, it's societal, it's familial, but I think we're at a time now that we absolutely can talk about this. 6 generations have passed, and hopefully that's enough time that we can start this process of healing that is so important. Have a moment, a time, not just a moment, but an era of reconciliation and coming together and telling our stories together.
We have started a program with the school system and the support of Mr. Rosenbaum, who is the history teacher. So they will get the local history, and they will also be a part of the event in October. We desire to do a reenactment of the gathering for the people to take to the Weeping Times in Savannah. That's the 30th of October.
I've been looking up at the American flag, and I know that we Americans are very proud of our Constitution and the preamble where we talk about we the people. Yes. But if we're going to be we the people, then this is the beginning of the conversation that must take place before we fully honor that statement. So I'll invite you to stand with me.
Powerful stuff. Mayor Pro Tem Lotson, this is both, bigger than all of us, but directly, your story and your family's story. Your thoughts.
Wow. In Cincinnati, Ohio, it blew me away. The fact that they're doing an opera, very much dealing with the Weeping Time and the enslaved on Butler Island. An opera. They paid me to come out there, and I had no idea. Just like this meeting, we're going, that they would use the words that came out of my mouth and turn part of it into an opera. And for me and Jane to plan this ragtag visit and listening to Martin Luther King, which we all are familiar with, those words, the sons and the daughters coming together and looking at each of you that's on this telecast that's going worldwide, being a part of that history that Dr. King, like a prophet, said. It's not frightening, it's eerie, and it's also, as Dr. Smalls, Reverend Smalls said, it's gratifying that we've lived long enough to do something bigger than ourselves. That means a lot to me. It means that now maybe I can rest with the ancestors. But our time is not up yet. We're in the middle of a huge battle for historical purposes. We're on the front line. I can't complain like I used to. Where y'all at? That's that Geechee coming out of me. Everybody saying, I'm with you, I'm with you. And now you find out you out there by yourself, and you look back and it was 100. Now there's only 3 people that hurt at one time. But the crew that I'm talking to now, that's viewing this, had gun in those, we're on the front line. We can't say what y'all are going to do. We have to carry the torch and be willing to pass it. So listening to those clips back in Martin Luther King Day back then, and then now in the 21st century, those sons and daughters are actually sitting down together. Unheard of. Unheard of. So I think we have to hold up the bloodstained banner, Dr. Smalls, Rebecca, Chuck, things that maybe I cannot do. That's one thing that I found out going biblical. One planteth, another waters, and God sent on the increase. There's sometime I can carry the torch, Chuck, just like you. And I have carried it. I can tell you some stories. But now I need you guys to carry the torch. As you say, you know, don't worry about throwing them under the bus. I'll throw them under the bus, okay? But I've done that. Now it's time for me to do the executive thing. How do you get a media like that to come together? That's my world I live in now. Had not a clue we can get those types of people together. But you've got to start. You may not have a clue, as Pat said, solutions. Well, we don't have all the solutions, but we're on the right path. And I believe something is going to happen. I've never seen it this alive before. Now, if we give up, it's going to fall back 10 to 20 more years. Do not give up. In Darien, and I'll close, we had received a coastal incentive grant over a decade ago, 2010, I think it was. Yeah, 2009, 2010. Not one thing was done after those funds were given. It all died out. And guess what? We're pumping new life in it again, but with a different attitude. Thank you, Chuck, for that. Those tapes that you just, it's not haunting, but it's chilling just to hear those words and to see all of us that's on the screen now that's in the battle. We're not behind the scene. We're in the battle. Let us continue. Thank you.
Thank you. This is a Georgia treasure, folks. This is a national treasure right here. Commissioner Lotson has been in this fight for much longer than he should be. You know, I mean, we all need to back up and keep doing what we're doing because I sense that I've sensed this a while. I've talked with John McMasters a lot, you know, founder of Better Savannah, a lot about this. That I've sensed that we're approaching a fork in the road or a turn around the corner with the politics locally. I think the first year of this council was very challenging. COVID, very unexpected, unfair in a lot of ways to them as a council. But we saw that there was that struggle and that division of power on the council. We saw it very clearly. And Reverend Small, we've seen more recently on the tax vote, on some other key votes, we've seen really our core group that's representing what I would call a more progressive Savannah is these three women on council, at-large alderwomen, Keisha Gibson Carter and Alicia Miller Blakely, and Alderwoman Bernetta Brown Leonard. But they all got three names, don't they? Yeah, I just noticed that. They're really fighting for us. And so when you see articles that are lambasting them because they went up to Atlanta and dared speak their mind that we shouldn't do this hotel motel tax deal, you know, understand that connects directly to issues like this that we're trying to fight for. You know, the video of you speaking before council is about 8 minutes long. It's a little too long, but I know you can recreate it for us here. Give us some words of wisdom to close out with, Dr. Small.
One of the things I want to speak to that happened tonight, and it's humility, humble spirit, great decency. Pastor Lotson referred to a ragtag meeting in that little city hall down in Darien. But it was a concert. It was a symphony of human dignity. It was conducted by a maestro of great skill. Griffin Lotson is a treasure. Now, I could talk about the weeping time, but not now. Right now, I want to talk about this little old short 5'4" man that's bigger than Goliath, that's stronger than bears and lions, because not of his physical prowess, but because of the strength in his heart, the steel in his spine, the determination in his mind. We're here, and we've gotten to the point where we take certain things for granted. We take for granted the fact that Rebecca and Chuck are white, and myself and Dr. Lotson are black. We've been around each other long enough and seen it in each other's company. We don't even think about that. But that is a story in itself. We have a hope that the normalcy of our gathering would be saturated throughout humankind, that our kids will come along and they won't notice color. They'll just notice friendship and fellowship, camaraderie. That's what this whole thing is about. And to make it of anything less, rank politics or Republican or Democrat or Christian or Protestant or atheist or whatever, is to cheapen it. We just need to make sure we know it's right and wrong. And lastly, I hope to God that not the world will know, but that my children and my grandchildren will know that their grandfather, their great-grandfather, their great-great-grandfather spent time to make sure they knew where they were coming from so that they'd be sure of where they needed to go. Thank you for the time.
Thank you so much for joining us, Rebecca. I want to give you an opportunity because you've been leading on this issue with John McMasters from Better Savannah on the Weeping Time Coalition, and then I'll have a small editorial of my own.
Thank you. That was very eloquently put, Leonard. And I don't think I've spent more time with anybody else since we came out of lockdown, to be quite honest. Than I do with the coalition. So I don't get out very much, but I've been going to church every Sunday. So everybody else should be coming to church on Sunday, because and I can't believe that this would be the last thing that we do either. Like, this is just step one. And there's something really special in that. And there's really a good kinship that is growing. And I think that is important for my child. That's why I'm there, because we need to do this. Because it's the right thing to do. So I thank you all for coming on to the show tonight. And I will see you on Sunday.
Thanks so much, Rebecca. I know that a lot of the power structure watches the show, so I wanna end by just speaking directly to power. And what I mean by that is, I don't know why that turned on over there on that screen. What I mean by that is, I want to speak to the elected officials who voted for this. Mayor Van Johnson, I know for a fact you watched this show. Nick Palumbo, I know you watched this show. Curtis Pertee, 6th District, Dietrich Leggett, my own alderman in the 2nd who doesn't answer my calls, Linda Wilder Bryan in the 3rd, who has choice words for us. I keep thinking we're gonna have a fatwa call that on, I guess, on a sooner or later here, Reverend Small. And I also want to speak to the other political and power brokers, principally in the tourism industry. And I'm speaking to Michael Owens, Joe Marinelli. I don't think it's Hubbard anymore, but it's whoever's at the chamber directly. I'm speaking to you guys too, right? If you think this opposition to business as usual is going to go away, you're just sadly mistaken. You know, the coalition that we have today, as of August 19th on this recording, is so much significantly stronger than it was a year ago at this time. If I'd have told you guys a year ago, I want you guys to rewind a year ago. A year ago, we still didn't really understand COVID all that well. We didn't have vaccines. We just failed a city manager search, right, when they started it. And then they all blamed it on Keisha and filed ethics complaints against her. And that was a whole drama-filled, couple of chapters of this city's history that ended in nothing. If I'd have told you guys, hey, look, a year later, we're going to be talking about preserving the largest, most important cultural asset to the majority of the citizens of this city. We're going to hire a qualified, an eminently qualified outsider city manager from our nation's capital. And he's going to be a white male. And they're going to vote 9-0 on it. If I'd have told you guys that a year ago, I mean, people would have asked me to pour whatever I was drinking or pass whatever I was smoking. I think, whatever is your poison, right? I just want to point out that progress to people. These women on this city council, and make no mistake, when Mayor Pro Tem Griffin Lotson says the power resides with the cities, he is not mistaken. I have been, following Lester Jackson's career for a long, long time. One of the large things he's always said to me was, if you get power at the city, all of the other levels of power will respond accordingly, right? Because ultimately, as Savannah goes, so goes Chatham County. And as Chatham County goes, so goes every elected official's political future in this county. And I want to just say this because this is a political organization. And you elected officials, it's not too late, okay? It doesn't have to be this way, right? You can look for compromise on the core issues that the other side wants. And if you can't find any room for compromise, especially on this issue for the weeping time, especially when you're asking to raise hotel motel and give the chamber and the tourism industry more money for downtown, right? You cannot expect us to compromise when we've already came into this council administration having compromised the last 4 decades. When's the last progressive mayor we had? Malcolm McLean? Guys, this is a long, long time ago. These men who have been leading us for decades, they were children. They were young men, when we had a progressive mayor last. So, I think we need to be willing to admit that we can work with people we don't like. I know that that's a message that keeps getting sent out. People want us to all be a family. But again, the thing about families is that you've got to fight for what are first principles. We can have principled negotiation down the road on other issues, but on things like voting rights, on things like cultural heritage surrounding an event such as the Weeping Time, on a thing like institutions in this town paying their fair share, they call Better Savannah anti-tourism. Well, when the 90% of the wages are $10 an hour, what do you expect us to do? You want us to incentivize more poverty? So we have to build a second Salvation Army Center sometime in the future? No, that's not what we want to see. So this was definitely probably my favorite panel show we've ever done. It's a really critical issue. I'd like to see other civically minded organizations, and let me call a couple names out about this, jump on this issue. Friends of Forsyth Park. Now, I know you guys you got a great plan for Forsyth. You all want us to buy into it. If you want some goodwill for your ideas, how about some goodwill for this great idea? Okay. All the Rotary clubs, all the other chambers of commerce, the one in Port Wentworth that's getting bid out. All these organizations, if you want to be on the right side of history, come join this coalition. Send somebody to the meeting Sunday at 4 p.m. on Augusta Avenue at Solomon Temple. Okay, you will find that it will be better for you. Whatever your organization's goals are, you will find more goodwill in this community if you come down on the right side of history. It's time to fight. The title of this show was A Time to Fight for the Weeping Time. And there's no time like today So I want to thank, again, Commissioner Lotson. I want to thank Rebecca Rose for putting this show together, coordinating all these guests, and having a wonderful discussion. And I want to thank Reverend Dr. Leonard Small for his, indelible, irreplaceable wisdom, as always. And guys, 50 episodes in, and I feel more hopeful about this city than I did when we started this in 2019. And that's saying a lot for what we went through since then. So here's to the next 50. John, I know that you'll probably watch this an hour or two later in California. Thank you for financially supporting this organization and getting it off the ground so we can have another outlet to be able to get progressive policy into place in Savannah. John will be back next week, guys, for episode 51. After another, it seems like he's on vacation a lot these days, but that's just a little jab at my friend. But he'll be back from vacation next week, and we've got a lot to talk about. The census numbers came out. I think we're going to talk a lot about that in the context of things that are going on. Pastor Small, you are welcome anytime on this show. You always know that. Commissioner Lotson, it's been wonderful to watch your leadership on this issue the last 6 months. We appreciate all that you've done before, all that you're going to continue to do for this coalition, and everything that you do to inspire others to join and do their work. So I just want to thank everybody. I'm going to take us out with just another couple of videos. If you missed some of it, you'll hear it again. Go ahead, Rebecca.
Since you showed a tattoo, and this is the showing.
There we go. Tattoo show.
Somehow that's how this show went. This is coincidental that I have. Can you see that guy?
Yes.
Raindrops.
That's coincidence.
Sure. Well, again, none of us are being callous about this, the other opposition. So when I hear this callousness about we don't care about the homeless or we don't care about people who are weeping today, none of us are trying to score political points on this. We're just trying to get the right thing done. All right. But if you won't do the right thing, you'll just force our hand. And anybody who knows this man right below me here, anybody who sees that sign right behind his left shoulder, and knows the history behind repeal fire tax, fire Hernandez, knows this coalition means business. And we're going to continue to expand and include more voices in this coalition, not just about the weeping time, but about preserving the opportunity for Black people in this city to really make it without their population to continue to be swindled down. The mayor sat up there. I'm going to talk more about this next week, I promise. But the mayor sat last week and said, it's indicative of the nationwide trends. And I went up there and said, nah, it's indicative of 20 years of pro-tourism, low wages, pro-SCAD, anti-affordable housing, all the issues that affect those communities you claim to have represented in this very community on the West Side. But there's always another show. Please tune in. We always go try to do a show every Thursdays. We struggled a little bit here over the summer to keep that up, but we do our best to keep this consistent. Again, on behalf of everybody in the Better Savannah organization, John McMaster is our chairman. I want to thank everybody here. Again, I'm going to play some of these clips on our way out so that anybody can see and hear this stuff again we talked about. But join us next week for episode 51. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Hey, Chuck. Hey, Better Savannah viewers. It's John McMasters here in Santa Cruz, California. And I know we're doing our 50th show, and I'm sorry I can't be there. But I just want to say congratulations and thanks to everyone's hard work and efforts to make Better Savannah, a viable, important point of dialogue and influence for the city of Savannah, for politics and better public policy. Have a great show.
Period. So as far as I'm concerned, that's it. I mean, that issue beyond that is that of the housing authority of.
I'm sure speaking for city manager, my council and all, that is one thing that this mayor and council and mayor's not going to do. We're not going to sell property like that, to make $1 on it, because there is something more important in life than money and development. And if we get rid of like Butler Island, or they were going to sell it, now if we do that, then it won't be able to just a couple of generations down the line, and it, like you said, it'd be non-existent. So we want to keep it alive and let everybody learn from this.
Savannah needs additional tourism. Savannah needs additional tourism.
I mean, I appreciate our tourism community. I appreciate our hoteliers in particular.